Hello! I've been talking about life illustrating throughout my videos, and I realized that it is a bit of a niche since I keep getting questions like, what is life illustration? What does it mean? And I keep referring people to my website. So I figured, why not tell you a little bit about how I got into it and what it actually is, so I can refer to this video instead of my website. So in this video, I'm going to tell you how I got into it, how long I've been doing it, pricing information, kind of paying it forward, and the different types of life illustrations that exist. So let's go. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Roxy van Bemmel. I am a visual artist from the Netherlands, and my work focuses on expanding and taking up space. On YouTube here, I share my studio practice via studio vlogs and the occasional business video. If you've never heard of life illustrating, then I get you. I did not know it existed when I started out in 2019, when I had my first assignment, my first paid assignment. I think there are two categories that you could fill life illustration in, and the first one being not the category that I'm in, actually life illustrating at business meetings. So it's making drawings during a meeting, interpreting what people say, and then making that into like a life illustration that the company can use for better understanding their meetings. That's not the category that I'm in. I think most people that do that kind of work are more like comic type of illustrators. I think it's really great and I think it serves its purpose, but I cannot do that. That's the first category. The other category is the live fashion illustrators, live comic illustrators, live caricature illustrators that draw an illustration on the spot of either a guest for an event that they can take home with them. Maybe they draw a scene. You see that a lot with like live wedding painters, for example, or maybe even a family portrait or a scene of the event that's happening over there. I do both. So I draw outfits as in fashion illustration and portraits at events, but I also do scenes like family portraits or something else special that's going on at that moment. I have a background in fashion design, which is also where I learned how to fashion illustrate. So you learn these certain proportions and you can change them up as you go. It's something you can teach yourself, but I happened to learn that on my fashion design studies. And I use that to get into life illustrating. So something that fits my style as well is that I work very fast. I use mixed media materials. I can work with like different things at the same time. And I can be very social at events. So those three things are what kind of got me started into life illustrating. There's one thing that I want to include if you've been watching my other videos as well, and something that sounds extremely contradictory is that I recently found out that I'm autistic and that I apparently work very well in loud social situations. I think it's weird too, because I do not do well with sound, but I think the combination of it being super high energy, hyper focused, and I think also within a set frame, like I have the same conversations over and over and over and over again. Everyone asks like, how did you get into this? Can you live off your art? What's another one? Are you studying? And all those questions are, yes, I can live off my art. No, I'm not studying. Yes, I've been doing this for a long time. Yes, this is my full-time job. Like all those questions, like everyone asks the same questions. So it's within a set frame and it's very focused. And what works for me is that it's a high-paid job within a limited amount of hours. So I go there, I do my work that I know I can do well, and then I go home and it's done. There's no adjustments to be made, there's no emails that have to be sent and then have to wait for feedback. It's just showing up and knowing exactly right there that someone is happy with their drawing. And I think that is what makes it work for me. As I said in the beginning of this video, I did not know it existed before I saw someone else doing it. And that was actually way at the start of me starting out as an illustrator for myself. I would now categorize myself more as an artist, but I think I started out doing illustration work that was more commission-based. I met a few people around me that did the same thing that I wanted to do, or did the same thing that I wished I would do. And a few of them did life illustrations as well. So they were kind of in the same category of work, like the same genre of work. I didn't know them personally yet, but I did meet them for coffee and ask them like, hey, can I talk about life illustration with you? And do you know how to get started with this? One of them led me to the other, and the other one, he said, you know, I have quite a few jobs that I can't all do, but if you practice a bit with drawing on events by yourself, then I would love to suggest you as an option. So that's what I did. I had no life illustration experience, but I just went out there to get it. Because I thought, you know, I'm fast, I'm social, I work with mixed media, I can draw fashion illustration, I can do this. So the first step for me was to actually get into events, which means I was not emailed to do a certain event and get paid for that, but actually I went out to festivals and cafes like, hey, can I draw at your event for free? And then I'll get the people that I draw to pay me. So I worked a lot with pay as you can, and sometimes I tested out like fixed fees. So I did a lot of different things, but the event never paid me. I got paid by the people that I drew. And that's also the first time that I noticed like, oh, this can really be a thing, because I was doing like a side job during that time or just before, and I got paid, I don't know, 10 euros an hour. And suddenly when I was drawing, it depends on how fast I was and how many people there were, but I think I got paid like an average of 15 euros per drawing, which is not enough, by the way, but it was a lot for me. And I noticed that I could make a lot more in those few hours of drawing than I could by working my side job. And there are obviously a lot of other things involved, but this was like a thing that clicked in my mind, like I can actually get paid for drawing. So I did a few of those events, and I actually did quite a few of those events. And I really started to get my name out there. I gave everyone business cards, I drew my name on everything, and I started getting followers for that. People that followed me in the Netherlands for my drawings. And I think my drawing style fit my life illustration style back then as well. So the ball kind of started rolling there. Then I got back to that other illustrator that said I should get other events, and then she would get me like a paid gig. And that happened. So my first paid gig was actually for a jewelry brand. It was only for 2 hours, I believe. That really showed me how an actual event worked, where the guests don't pay for their drawing, but like the organizer pays for the drawing. And I'm so glad that that illustrator told me to do other events before it, because it was hectic. It was busy, there was noise, there was music, there were people like standing over you constantly, which was also at the other events, but in a more minimal sense. So that event was a success, and the organizers, the jewelry brand, actually booked me for another event a few years later. So they were very happy with me. And I had my first illustration job in the pocket. And then a thing called COVID happened, and all my life illustration jobs that I had lined up were gone. We're gonna quickly forget about this time, but this was the time where I noticed that the life illustrating was a great way to provide for my artistic practice. And I really developed my artistic practice during the COVID times. I finally had the time to paint, I got better, And then when like the country or the world opened up again, I had a lot more experience. There was also a time where I did not want to live illustrate. It felt like it was, this is gonna sound really bad, but it felt, I kind of felt like too good to do it. I didn't really enjoy it anymore. I think it was this time where I noticed that I had this feeling about illustration being less than real art. And I know that sounds dumb, at least I think now that it sounds dumb, but somehow it got into my mind. And I mean, you have to think of 2 years sitting inside your bubble and all these ideas piling up. And then I just didn't want to illustrate anymore. And I didn't want to be known for fashion. I just didn't enjoy it anymore. But I got out of that at some point. And I found, again, that it was a great a great product, honestly. It's sort of something that is not as interlinked with my emotions, my inner world, my art practice, even though it still has my drawing style. And that's what I mean by product, because I don't mind selling it. I feel like my paintings are where my world goes to the world. But the life illustrations are they have more value, I think, for the person that is portrayed than for me as the artist. Even though I think the drawings are good, they're not as linked with my own emotions, my own inner world. They're more valuable for the people that I draw. So when I figured out that I did want to live illustrate again, I focused a bit of my time on it. And I made sure that all the names of the brands that I work with were on my website. I made sure that my website looked good with all the photos that I gathered over all those time. Illustrators never forget to ask the photographers about your photos and if you can use them. I made sure that my SEO was good on my website so that if you Googled Live Illustrator the Netherlands, my name would pop up. I made sure to know all the other live illustrators because it's such a tiny niche world, and that's kind of how it just kept rolling. I wrote down pay it forward because when I started out, I met this illustrator that paid it forward for me, and now I wanted to do something back. As in, if I have a double booking, or if I have a request coming in and I can't because I have another live illustration gig, or maybe I teach a workshop, or I just can't, I make sure to always recommend other people. And I think that's also how it comes back to you. So I feel like the group of people that I have around me in the live illustration scene, and also the artist scene, but that's another thing, that they're not as competitive, but more as in collaborative. Because if I can't on a certain date and the other person can, why would I not recommend another person? And I know if they have another date that they can't do that job, then I'll get the other job. So that's just how it keeps rolling. A thing I'd like to mention though is regarding pricing, because if you pay it forward, you have to make sure that people that you recommend are asking the same sort of pricing, and not as in you can get the maximum amount per hour, but as in you actually value the work that you're doing, and you make sure that you're not competing on price. So all the people I recommend, I know, are around the same sort of price per hour. There's a variety of ways you can think of your price, but just to show you kind of what happens in the Netherlands, as it's probably different in other countries as well, I charge between 250 and 300 an hour, and that actually boils down, because I draw 5-6 minutes per person, to about 30-35 euros per drawing. Which the first one sounds high, but the second one actually sounds quite low. I want to put a disclaimer there that I am not able to work a full live illustration week. You are often booked for only 3 hours. The 6-hour days are kind of exceptions, and you are done after 6 hours of live illustrating. It's way different energy based than a regular gig. In that case, that's why the hourly rate is a little bit higher than you might think. And you have to see it as sort of an entertainment thing. So if you ask a musician to play, they're gonna play like 1.5 or 2 hours max, because that's how long you can perform for. But you can't ask that person to charge only like 100 an hour, because that would mean their whole performance where they practice for would be very, very underpaid. So I guess that's kind of how you can see those pricing. I know in the UK or in London, people work a lot with agencies, and the agencies take a cut. I'm not familiar with the pricing there. I think it's a little bit higher than here. And then in the Netherlands, I don't know anyone who works with agencies. So it's going to be different in per location. If you go to the US, the fees are probably going to be a lot higher because living expenses there are a lot higher. I've seen wedding painters charge, I think, a few thousand per wedding. And that also completely depends on if you're doing like loose drawings, or if you're doing like whole paintings where the material costs are going to be higher. So there's quite a lot of variables in there. But for me, it's around 250 to 300 an hour. I also have a starting fee. So if someone wants me to draw for 1.5 hours, that will be honestly not worth my time. So I have a starting fee of 700 right now. As of right now, it could be higher when I upload this or when you watch this, so that it's worth my time to go there. And then if you print paper, it's going to be extra. If you want to have extra drawings made in my studio, it's going to be extra. If you want to have like a sample drawing in your branding style, whatever, it's going to be extra. So that's really the basic price. And I think it's good to keep in mind that it's really valuable if someone has an original drawing with a branding of a certain brand, maybe hanging on their fridge or framed or wherever they have it, but people keep drawings like that. So in that case, honestly, I think it's kind of cheap. I think the important qualities that you can have as a life illustrator are being able to work really quickly. I draw one portrait in 6 minutes, and that's one person. I think to be at least sort of social, because you're going to have a lot of conversations. You're going to have a lot of new faces every day or every time that you work. And being, this is a bit of a weird one, but being accepting of the faults that you make, because you are going to make faults, you are going to make mistakes. You're going to take 6 minutes per drawing, so not every drawing is going to be perfect. And you have to be learning yourself to have a poker face really quickly. Because otherwise, if you show that you don't like a drawing that you make, the other person is going to doubt that drawing immediately. So if you show that you don't like it, it's not good. It's not going to get well. So if you show just nothing, then it's open to their opinion. And usually the people that you draw do not have drawing experience. They can't draw, they can't paint, and you can. Like, you are way more critical of your drawings than that they are. So keep that in mind. I think it took me a little bit as well that I could not show what my own thoughts were about the drawing. Although I do share when I really like a drawing. So that doesn't mean that I am critical of every drawing that I do not share anything about. Don't think you have to hold in all your emotions, but I think you need to be critical of what emotions you're showing. Then next to the guests that you're portraying, obviously you're gonna have like your clients that book you, and I think it's just the general things that make a good business and make a good like person you want to hire. So just be nice, make sure that you have everything with you, you have backups, you have a backup pencil sharpener, you have backup markers, everything that you need. Be very clear in your communication. So if you need a certain chair, if you need a certain light, I cannot tell you the amount of time that I've had to draw in like yellow atmospheric lights, and that I would have to make it work. I've even drawn in colored lights once, which was impossible, but that learned me that if there's no lights, if there's no clear indication that there are regular lights, you're gonna have to bring like your own lamp. And the person that organizes it, you can expect them to forget about those things. Chairs as well. Be communicative that you're going to have to sit in that chair for 3, 4, 6 hours, and that it needs to be a good height. I've still come across situations where there's like no table and there's like a seating chair, like a relaxed seating chair, and I can tell you that that is the worst for your back. You might get away with it when you're 20, 25, but I'm now 32, and I have to say that everything got worse with like pains in my back, and you're not gonna like that chair. So you have to take care of your body. Clear communication is very important, and also just be nice. Don't be another stress factor, because you're there, you know your job, you're gonna do your job, and then you're gonna leave. Especially when it's an event, like all the things come together in an event, so probably the person that booked you is very busy with other things and very busy with everything else except you. So just do your thing and it should be all right. Now, if you have any other questions about life illustrating, leave them in the comments. I would love to know. And if you want to check out my life illustrations for bookings, then you can head down to the description and see all the life illustrations that I've made over the years. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.